So, a few weeks ago, I attended Develop Brighton for the very first time. For those of you who've never heard of it, Develop Brighton is one of the biggest gatherings of games industry professionals in the UK. Every year, thousands of developers, publishers, investors, and service providers make their way to the south for 3 days of talks, meetings, catching up with old colleagues, and meeting new people. Going into the event, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what to expect. After all, the industry is going through one of its toughest periods in recent memory. Layoffs, studio closures, publishers becoming more cautious, and funding becoming harder to secure. Everyone has been under a huge amount of pressure. So naturally, I expected that mood to carry over into the conference. People to feel frustrated, pessimistic, maybe even slightly defeated. But surprisingly, I completely misread the room. What I found wasn't an industry feeling sorry for itself. It was an industry doing something far more interesting. Hi everyone, welcome to another video of Life About Games. As usual, my name is Alex, and today I want to talk about the biggest lessons I took away from Develop Brighton 2026. Let's jump right in. Over the last few years, we've seen thousands of people lose their jobs. Projects getting cancelled, studios shutting down, investments slowing down, and publishers becoming more risk-averse. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know this already. Building games has become much harder. Not necessarily from a technical point of view, but commercially. So, going into Develop, I wasn't expecting to discover some hidden truth about the industry's problems, but rather understand how people were actually responding to them. One interesting fact about this year's Develop is that it attracted more than 5,800 attendees, which is a record high for the event. Also, more than 3,000 meetings were scheduled through the Meet at Develop platform. People traveled from all over to attend, and it was somewhere during the first afternoon that I realized something very important. The reports are true and the challenges are absolutely real, but they aren't telling the full story. Because what I found walking around Brighton wasn't an industry sitting and waiting for things to magically improve. It was an industry that had already accepted reality and started adapting to it. Surprisingly, one of the recurrent themes that came up in almost every conversation that I had wasn't the games themselves, but funding. Studios looking for publishers, grants, loans, and the equity investment, all in an attempt to extend their runway. The more people I spoke to, the more I realized these conversations were all tackling the same challenge. How do you build a sustainable game studio in today's market? The answer to that question comes at least in part from the way many studios are currently trying to diversify. During the event, I met several teams that were already offering or looking to offer co-development, porting, engineering support, art production, and other work-for-hire services. Not because they'd given up on making their own games, quite the opposite, because they wanted to continue making them. 5 years ago, this type of work might have been considered Plan B, but for many studios, today, this is the business model. Service work isn't replacing original IP, it's actually helping to fund it. The image many people have of an independent studio is a team working full-time on their dream project. But increasingly, that doesn't reflect reality anymore. Or at least, it isn't the full picture. Studios are becoming hybrid businesses. They're generating stable revenue through services, keeping smaller permanent teams, working with external partners when they need to, and reducing their reliance on a single source of funding. Interestingly, Matthew Ball highlights the same trend in his 2026 report. He points out that more development work is moving towards external partners. Not just QA or localization, but core creative and technical work as well. The industry isn't standing still, it's adapting. And increasingly, studios aren't choosing between becoming a service company or an original IP studio. They're becoming both. Now, I don't want to make it sound like this approach doesn't have its downsides, because it does, and adaptation comes at a price. One person I spoke to during Develop told me they believed around 95% of the people attending the event still relied on another source of income. I don't know how accurate that number is, but after all the conversations I had throughout that week, I don't think it sounds completely unreasonable. People freelancing, doing consulting, teaching, or working in a completely different industry while building their own game on the side. To me, this says something important, that passion for the medium is still abundant, while financial security isn't. The more time founders spend chasing funding, delivering customer work, or simply keeping the business alive, the less time they have to build the game they actually want to make. It's a compromise, and it raises an important question. Are these changes creating healthier studios? Or are they simply helping them survive until the next project? Something else that really stood out to me throughout that week was just how many games were on display. There was the official indie showcase, but that was only part of it. Across Brighton, you had events like Brilliant Indie Treasures and Weird Worlds, each showcasing dozens of additional projects. Honestly, I found that really encouraging. After everything the industry has been through over the last few years, I expected to see fewer people building original games. Instead, I found the opposite. People are still making games, experimenting, trying new ideas. Sure, not every game will be a hit, but I don't think that's really the point. The point is that despite all the financial pressure surrounding the industry, people haven't stopped creating. What has changed is the way they're approaching sustainability. If funding was the biggest topic at Develop, then I think relationships were probably its biggest strength. People weren't there just for the talks. They were there because of other people, to catch up with old friends, expand their networks, and share experiences. After everything the industry has been through, I expected people to be much more protective. Instead, what I found was the same open and welcoming community that it has always been. For the most part, people were there to genuinely connect, learn from each other, and help. Because when funding becomes harder to secure, relationships become one of the most valuable assets a studio can have. Sometimes, one introduction is all it takes to find your next customer, publisher, or business partner. There may be less funding available than studios would like, but what really stood out to me was just how much goodwill there is still out there. So, coming back to our original question, what did Develop actually teach me? Honestly, it made me realize I'd been looking at the industry in the wrong way. For the last couple of years, we've all been asking the same question. When is the games industry going to recover? After spending 3 days in Brighton, I'm not really sure that is the right question anymore. Because what I saw wasn't an industry waiting for things to go back to normal. It was an industry accepting that this is the new normal. Rather than waiting for better conditions, studios are changing the way they operate. They're building businesses that are more flexible, less dependent on a single source of funding, and hopefully more resilient. Something else that caught my attention was just how little AAA presence was at the event. Most of the conversations I had were with independent studios and smaller teams, which probably explains why sustainability dominated so many of the discussions. These are the teams feeling the pressure first, or maybe they are simply the ones adapting the fastest. Either way, I think they offer a very interesting glimpse of where this part of the industry might be heading over the next few years. So, what are the key takeaways from all of this? First, I think hybrid studios are going to become increasingly common. The line that stands between building your own game and providing services to others is already starting to blur. Second, I don't think funds will come from one place anymore. Instead of relying on a single publisher or investor, more studios will piece together grants, crowdfunding, service work, publishing deals, and private investment to fund their projects. And finally, I think flexibility is becoming a competitive advantage. Smaller teams, trusted external partners, lower fixed costs, and the ability to scale when needed. Whether these changes will lead to a healthier industry or simply help studios survive for longer, I honestly don't know. But after spending 3 days at Develop, one thing became very clear. The industry is still full of ambitious and talented people. Despite everything that's happened over the last few years, people are still showing up. They're still making games. They're still helping each other. They're still finding new ways to keep doing what they love. The games industry may not have recovered yet, but it's clearly refusing to stand still. And I think that is a much more interesting story. And on that note, we reached the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel too, as it really helps support my work and reach more people who are interested in these topics. Thanks again, and until next time, stay happy and keep gaming.